Let's dive right in with the huge question, one that sits at the very core of our lives. How do we actually know what we know? We're about to take a look under the hood at the very programming of our own beliefs.
No, really, take a second and think about it. Pick something you believe to be 100% true. Could be anything. Now really ask yourself, how did that idea get into your head? Where did it actually come from? Because it turns out, most of our knowledge doesn't come from our own deep research. Nope, a lot of it is kind of installed, like software, and it comes from just a handful of key sources. So let's figure out what that programming is.
Okay, so first up, let's talk about the knowledge that's just given to us. This is the playbook we inherit from the moment we're born into the world. And the first source is tradition. You know, all that stuff that's been passed down through generations. And honestly, it's super efficient. It means we don't have to start from square one with everything, which lets our collective knowledge actually grow over time. I mean, think about it. None of us needs to personally test the theory that drunk driving is a bad idea. We just accept it. And that lets us build on what's already known instead of constantly relearning the same dangerous lessons.
But here's the catch with tradition. It's a real two-sided coin. On one hand, it's the foundation we build on. It's even the basis for science. But on the other hand, if we never question it, tradition can become a trap that stifles new ideas and holds us back. All right, next up in that inherited playbook is authority. This is when we accept something as true just because an expert or someone we see as an expert tells us it is. You know, doctors, scientists, teachers. And let's be real, relying on authority is an incredibly useful mental shortcut. We trust a teacher in their field because of their experience. It saves us from having to become a PhD in everything just to make it through the week. But just like tradition, authority has a big downside. What happens when the experts are wrong? Or when we trust them so much, we stop thinking for ourselves? For instance, if you only listen to the teacher about why students are failing, you might completely miss the crucial perspective that only the students themselves have.
So, we've talked about the external world. Now let's turn inward and look at the sources of knowledge that come from inside us, from faith, from belief, and from that simple gut feeling.
For billions of people around the globe, mysticism and religion are an incredibly powerful source of knowledge and truth. This knowledge is often based on the authority of sacred texts or connection to the supernatural. It provides meaning, a moral compass, and plays a massive role in cultures all over the world.
But this is where things can get really complicated. This source of knowledge can sometimes create major conflicts with scientific observation. A classic example comes from an interpretation of this Old Testament text, which was used for centuries to argue that the sun revolves around the earth, and that set the stage for a historic showdown. And that showdown was the infamous Galileo affair. Here's the wild part. The ancient Greeks actually figured out that the Earth probably orbited the sun, but that knowledge got lost. So when guys like Copernicus and Galileo rediscovered this with their own eyes and telescopes, it was seen as a direct attack on the church's authority. In 1633, Galileo was literally forced, under threat of torture, to deny what he could plainly see was true. This whole dramatic episode teaches us something that's absolutely critical. For knowledge to advance, for science to progress, we must have the freedom to follow the evidence, even if it leads us to uncomfortable places and overturns our most deeply held beliefs.
Okay, now let's talk about a source of knowledge we all use every single day: common sense. It's our gut instinct, right? Our intuition. It's that little voice that tells us something just feels right. And it's great for making quick, everyday decisions. But here's the deal. As a guide to understanding complex issues, common sense is actually pretty terrible. It's not logical, it's not systematic, and honestly, a lot of what we call common sense is just old traditions that we've never really stopped to question.
And that brings us to arguably the most powerful source of knowledge and myths in the modern world: the storyteller that shapes our reality every single day.
Yep, I'm talking about the media. Through TV, the news, the internet, we are swimming in a constant stream of information that is literally building our sense of social reality.
But we have to pull back the curtain and remember how this stuff gets made. Often, the #1 goal is entertainment, not perfect accuracy. Writers tweak reality to tell a better story. Journalists on crazy deadlines make mistakes, and just by choosing what to focus on, the media can easily shape public opinion.
So, after all of that, where does this leave us?
Well, it leaves us with what might be the most important skill of all, learning to think about how we think.
So let's just do a quick recap. Every single one of these sources, tradition, authority, religion, common sense, and the media, they all offer us something valuable, but every single one also comes with a built-in danger, a blind spot that we really need to be aware of.
And that's the real key here. The goal isn't to just reject all of these sources and become a total cynic. The goal is to become a critical consumer of information, to understand where your beliefs are coming from, so you can evaluate them with your eyes wide open.
So I'll leave you with this final question. Now that you can see some of the programming that's running in the background, what's one belief you hold that might be worth taking a second look at? Thanks for joining this explainer.